Hey, yo, it's a fair. It's raining today. I'm going to do another one of my stupid videos with all the facts and stuff. I've got 2 beef ribs. Not that anybody's shooting a cow, but they're big, so they show some stuff. This is a rib out of a pig, a domestic pig. And from what I understand, domestic pigs are between 200 and 250 pounds, somewhere in there. Short little wicked sucker. And the scapula out of a pig with that nasty thing on it. Ridge of the scapula. Terrifies the flipper flapper shooters. Shoot an adult arrow, it's not such a big deal. A little curled up here. I think that's natural, but we'll discuss that. Hang on. These are dino ribs. There's a lot of great barbecue joints in Texas, but I happen to live in Central Texas, which is its own thing as far as barbecue is concerned. And dino ribs are really good. Mrs. Fowler is a big fan of beef ribs. And we were eating barbecue and brisket and all that stuff, and I looked at this bone and I was like, because I'm a weird guy, right? I took pictures at the Smithsonian when I was there of the rib cages and the fully mounted skeletons of the animals to show the vital V and all the rib cage that's in the vital V, because I'm that strange. I enjoyed it. I'm just weird. And then there's pig ribs, which suck because they're round. The first thing you'll notice about a natural rib is they're bent. So as your arrow shaft is flying into this relatively flexible substrate of various thickness, from there to there, this is kind of a nasty little spot. It is naturally already bent towards the impact point, meaning if it hits, and they are flexible, if they weren't flexible, you couldn't breathe. You couldn't and exhale. You would have a cement chest and nothing would occur, and of course you wouldn't make it. So they're already bent toward the penetrator as it approaches and varying in thickness. Now I realize this is a beef rib. And a lot of you are going to say, "You're an idiot, feller. Nobody shoots cows." Well, that's not true. The Aussies get to pluck them. You get up to buffaloes and stuff. But this is very similar to a deer rib on a macro scale, and it shows some of the variability in the bone. There's a big flat spot right here and a pocket right here where I can like put my thumb against it. And there's a hole there. And then this random, I don't know if that's a wound on the rib from the cow being alive. It looks like, if you look at that right there, like it got punctured or something. And then the rib might have healed there, creating this blob of thicker material, while this side is very thin. And then as the rib goes towards the bottom, it gets nasty right here. That's pretty thick. I have a micrometer. Let's do that. Fancy pants. I'll talk about that in a minute. That's for another video. More factual stuff. Nobody likes that guy. So this particular rib on a really big animal, should you be so fortunate to go buffalo hunting, Asiatic buff hunting, or any of that stuff. Of course, my micrometer doesn't work. Farts. Okay, we're back. The battery was out on my micrometer. So we're seeing, we're not metric. Are we metric? No. I'll try to sound smart and go metric, but I'm not going metric. So, 1/3 of an inch. this little knob where it looks like there's a wound that healed. If you hit that spot, half an inch, then you get down here to the thickest part of the bone. .7. The point being, even in deer and elk and that kind of thing, the bone varies in thickness across the length of the bone, and then you cannot predict whatever that is, which, like I said, it looks like a wound that healed right here, and it made a knob right here. You can't predict you're not going to hit that because you don't even know it's there. So that's why you want to choose an arrow platform that says, hey, maybe the bones aren't uniform, and I need to plan that I might hit that, and it's in a perfect spot, but it's 0.7 inches thick. Or you can hope you always hit the part that's 1/3 of an inch thick. It's just not really practical because you can't control that. This is another bone from a beef rib, and it's super uniform. It has a ridge right here that's kind of hollowed out. Let's see if I can get a shot of that. See that right here? Just this half of the bone is kind of scooped out for however just the thing developed, right? There's no rhyme or reason, but it's really thick on this end and it's really thick on that end. So what are you going to hit? And deer ribs aren't any different. They're lighter. I got that. But I wanted you to see that in these flat, more flat-ribbed animals like deer and elk and stuff, this is more of a bone that's very similar to a white-tailed deer. And this could cause skips and breaks, and then the variability in the thickness in your choice of arrow system, your arrow tuning, sharpness, and the durability of your broadheads in a completely unpredictable impact substrate. The reason why I got the bone, again, I got the cow bones is because they represent, a hooved ungulate, and depending on the size of the animal, especially you guys who get half an arrow penetration on deer, and then you take that same arrow system and go elk hunting. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I've said this on a lot of videos. I know you can kill an elk with a 243. It is a really great rifle for whitetail deer inside of 200 yards. I mean, it's a great platform for whitetail deer. But I don't know a lot of people who say, well, my 243 works on deer. I want to shoot me an elk with it. Yes, it can be done. You could shoot them in the head and it would be lethal. But for body shots, it's just not a very practical, platform. And most people who go elk hunting increase the size of the bullets and the caliber of the rifles they go hunting because they're going for something bigger. But you'll shoot a 400 grain arrow that does okay on deer and gets half an arrow penetration, and then you'll take that thing elk hunting because you can shoot it 90 yards. I don't understand that. Doesn't make any sense to me. Whatever. Now to my species that I've shot the most, because my channel is not a hunting channel. I leverage the pig population, which is free and basically bottomless and has no laws, to test arrow platforms, different kind of broadheads, shot angles, all that good stuff, arrow masses, and see what works. These are some wicked suckers. Pig ribs are short, blunt, and very round. You want to talk something that will skip. Next time you have a rack of ribs in front of you, put your finger on the meat that you actually eat off the bone. If it's 3/4 of an inch, you'll be lucky. Now, in your head, say, how wide is the broadhead I shoot? Is it a 3-inch wide, flapper flipper? Well, that means you are guaranteed to hit 2 bones for sure. Those suckers are round, they are short, and they are super inflexible. I mean, this is a very stout bone. I believe this is one of the reasons why, when I first started focusing on larger feral hogs and hadn't explored arrow platforms and more lethal arrow systems, I believe I was struggling to find them because my broadheads weren't surviving impact. And that means that if any of y'all ever cleaned a deer, you ever cleaned a feral hog where they just eat knives. I mean, they're horrible. The hair is just horrific on them. It's like wires, and it's covered in sand and mud, and elk are too, which is a naturally eroding substance for the edge of a broadhead. Then you hit these round suckers. Because of the cartilage, the meat, the connective tissue, and everything else that's around this thing doesn't shatter. Neither does this. So I think where people get misled on bone impacts with projectiles is they're used to seeing bullets which explode and do a lot of damage and have a ton of velocity, and they tend to shatter the bone and make it, especially on exit wounds, right? The bullet mushrooms and comes out the other side and really destroys everything in its path. The broadhead does not do that. It cuts its way in and out. So that means it'll slice this sucker off. Use this arrow shaft as an example for the other side of the broadhead, of the rib. Let's say that's your cut, okay? Arrow would be approaching from this direction. It would cut off and it would snap right back into place just like that and close the cut up. It's one of the reasons I really do believe everybody says pigs don't bleed. They have pretty thick skin. They have a lot of fat. They don't like bleeding. And just physiologically speaking, once again, it's bent. Your arrow would be approaching this way. It would cut the bone off, and the bone would just go whoop and snap right back into place with all the fat and the meat around it. And it doesn't really create a hole. It's a hell of a penetration project for a mechanical broadhead because of the number of ribs you're going to hit, and it's also going to cut. And the approach angle of the blades like this, it's like slapping water. If you've ever stuck your finger slowly into water or slapped it with your hand, that's kind of my experience with mechanical broadheads on feral hogs. And it was either hero and it wasn't a lot, or it was zero. And I don't know that I didn't kill them. I just never found them. On to a scapula. This one's a little bent because we made pulled pork out of this. So normally this piece would be more flat, and this would be the inside, and this would be a little more curved around the ribs. Okay, so that little bend right there, I'm not sure that's physiologically normal. It looks like it's bent on both sides, and I believe that's from cooking it. However, this sucker is horrible place to hit, followed by pretty significant. And then once again, this is the farm pig, so it's not a 400-pound pig. That's 0.2 inches thick right there. And down here, it's over ½ an inch. 0.6 in the thickest part. Okay. Once again, you can't predict what you're going to hit. And then behind that is the rib cage. Okay. So if you were to hit the scapula, say from a tree stand shot, break through, you still got to break ribs on top of that. And as discussed before, the ribs are just going to cut with a normal broadhead, punch a hole through the scapula, and then the ribs are there. So it's just going to seal up, even if you get, the broadhead out the other side of the animal, which would be ideal, because then theoretically your exit wound would be low if you're in a tree stand, as I said. This sucker right here, that's where the humerus ball joins up. It's cut off, but that's where it would be. Ooh. 1.1 inch thick impact point. I have broken that. I've broken that with a 12-factor arrow with a 40-pound bow and the tough head. I've not done it a lot with other arrow platforms, but when you use that long, skinny, high penetration single bevel, it tends to do the job and does a really good job on this heavier bone, and then get you some penetration, and hopefully you can find the animal. So back to the main point of this whole video. Pig rib, beef rib represents a deer and elk, much smaller scale, on the deer and the elk, but the variability and the thickness and the shape and this flat and this round and all that stuff does exist on deer. Not would, it does. And every rib's different. There's no continuity to it. So it's a completely variable target. Then you go, I'm gonna go pig hunting. Good, let's go shoot round things. That sounds like a great idea. Tremendous skip opportunity here. That's hard to hit real plumb. Just try to take a screwdriver, set it on here, and hit it with a hammer and try to make it punch right through. I bet you'd skip off like crazy. And that's what you can't control. That's the stuff you cannot control once the arrow impacts the animal. It's just basic, simple physiology of the arrow system. I'm going to do a video later on this. This is my rib cage of PVC pipe. And there's a lot of bozos out there selling mechanical broadheads, and they always show the mechanical broadhead go right through the crease, right through there, and the blades evade the ribs, or they flex out of the way, or all this idiotic. I mean, you're telling me that you can aim between the ribs. You're crazy. But it's, of course, if you want to sell broadheads, it's the most ideal place to hit would be in between the ribs, and preferably vertical. If you could get every mechanical broadhead to hit in between the ribs and vertical, you're a slick son of a bitch, by the way, to make it fly. And the spin rotation, you could zero your bow to the rotation of the broadhead to make sure it's vertical every time and have 5 different distances or something you could shoot. That might work. So when you see one of these bozos selling mechanical broadheads or doing some kind of deal with a rib cage or whatever, here's what I want your comment to be. What happens on quartering away? Something tells me it's going to hit the ribs. So if you're going to try to avoid the ribs and you don't shoot perfectly broadside with the ability to make sure it's vertical and shoot between the ribs, you will now enter the world of Plan B. The physiology of whatever you're trying to penetrate enters the picture with no predictability at all. It's a reason why you want to shoot a very stable platform, which would have the highest forward of center you possibly could. You would prefer to shoot something that's one piece end steel, something long and narrow like that would penetrate, or the Art Ranch Prairie 200. I have a Magnus here. You got one piece of steel broadhead like that, single bevel. Or if you at least go Magnus, shoot the 4 blades fine, but this thing's got a low angle of attack and will cut really well and blast through the bones and get you some penetration. Okay, I guess that's all I have to say this evening in my bad lighting in the shop in the rain video with my micrometer that failed on me. Well, didn't fail, I had to replace the battery. I want to make a note though. When I was a kid, the Haynes manuals and stuff told you how to adjust the valve. I mean the valves on your engine, and how to adjust your distributor and your carburetor. This thing says, in case a child swallows it, go to the hospital immediately. The world is eroding at a rapid pace. I think we're going to make it though, because all the stupid people are going to die off. At least we hope so. All right, we're supposed to say like and subscribe. Hit the dinger bell, send this to your friends. And anybody who's wondering why you would want to shoot a higher forward of center, high penetration, no fail, no bendy tippy, no blades snapping off broadhead, because they may want to believe all the ads from all the manufacturers of broadheads and what they say. It's just beautiful, and the filming is great. And the lighting's way better than mine. The audio's good. Beautiful pictures, sunsets, and all that stuff. Those are still a problem. No one wants to talk about that, except for my idiot, self. Because I'm willing to admit that I'm not the greatest shot in the world, and sometimes things go wrong, and I would prefer something that would be able to handle, you know, me missing a little bit or the animals move. I mean, I know yours don't, but I'm 100% on video on moving animals. So if you would like to hear more about how bones break, we did a video with Dr. Ed and Stephen Payne, who's in the bone business and sports medicine and that kind of stuff. And they either break bones intentionally that need to be reset, or they fix bones that have been broken. It was an interesting discussion and talk about how long bones break, the easiest way to get them to break, the kind of tools they did. Here's a picture of the thumbnail, and I will put in the description a link to that video, because it was a really informative podcast on the actual people who do bone work and what it takes to get stuff to break, how they do it, what bones are made of. So watch that video, because it's cool stuff. All right, well, I'll see you around, and until the next time.